This week's episode of Hot on the Case is going to be a hard listen. We're going to be diving into some really heavy, dark topics, which includes the murder of a 4-year-old girl at the hands of her own brother.
Mom, what's your least favorite word?
My what?
Your least favorite word. Or sentence.
I don't know.
Kill Charity's children?
Paris Bennett is a psychopath. He's a master manipulator with a genius-level IQ and is incapable of feeling remorse for the brutal crime that he committed when he was only 13 years old. Some say that Paris is an evil genius, that he was born evil. Is brutality and evilness something that you can inherit, like eye color or a bad temper? Are some people just born to kill? This is the tragic murder of Kyla Bennett and the unsolved murder of Bobby Bennett. Welcome back to another episode of Hot on the Case. If this is your first time ever joining us for an investigation, here at Hot on the Case, we talk all things true crime with a focus on the unsolved and unexplained. If mysteries are your thing, please consider following the show wherever you're listening, whether that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or if you're watching the video version on YouTube. Please don't forget to like, rate, and review the show because it really does help. And if you're a returning listener or a returning subscriber, thank you so much for being here. My name is Brianna, and I'm hot on the case. Paris and Ella's mother, Charity Lee, was born in Georgia to her parents, Kyla and James Robert Bennett Jr., or Bobby Bennett. Charity's parents, Kyla and Bobby, owned their own trucking company, the Bennett Trucking Company, and it was extremely successful. The family was very wealthy. They lived on a big ranch. They had their own personal drivers, and Charity even had her own live-in nannies. Charity claims that she was living a very happy, ideal childhood until the death of her own father in 1980 when Charity herself was only 5 years old. Charity's mother, Kyla, was always a pretty hands-off mother, but after this, her mother became cruel. The older that Charity got and the more that she talked back, the worse the relationship between mother and daughter got. Charity was extremely intelligent in school, outperforming her peers and achieving much more than the other kids her age. Charity got straight A's. She excelled in extracurricular activities, anything that she could do to get her mother's attention or to make her mother, Kyla, proud. But when excelling and achieving didn't get the response from her mother that Charity wanted, Charity began to rebel and started using hard substances. Here's a direct quote from Charity about her high school years and her relationship with her mother. "I did everything I could do to make her love me, or even better, approve of me, because nothing ever got her approval. I did it all. I skipped the 10th grade. I graduated from high school when I was 16. I played varsity soccer when I was only supposed to be on JV. And the whole time I did that in high school, I shot heroin. Anything to get my mother's attention." The relationship between mother and daughter was clearly strained, and Kyla seemed to care more about her appearance and her wealth than she did about her own daughter. When Charity was only 17 years old, her mother, Kyla, kicked her out of the house with only $100. She told her daughter to use that money to either get herself help or to score some drugs and find somewhere to overdose. When Charity was 18 years old, she begged her mother to send her to rehab. Kyla did not want to, but when she did, she sent Charity to a rehab that was 3 states away so no one would find out. Charity was able to overcome her addiction and get sober. Her counselors at rehab told Charity that once she was sober, she would be happy, but this was not the experience that Charity had. Charity expected that once she was sober, all her problems would go away, but they didn't. Charity was very depressed, and along the way, she lost her will to live. Charity made a deal with herself that if she was not happy by 19 years old, that she would take her own life. Only 1 month later, Charity discovered that she was pregnant with her son, Paris. And as soon as Charity found out that she was pregnant, everything changed. This was a miracle pregnancy. This was a sign. This was her will to live. Charity said in those moments she had never been happier in her entire life. And ironically, Charity says that Paris saved her life, never knowing that 13 years later, he would destroy it. Charity wanted to raise Paris and do better than her own mother had. She wanted to give Paris the childhood, the love, and support that she was never given. Paris's father, after learning that Charity was pregnant, did not want to be involved, and he was later diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia with visual and auditory hallucinations. Charity was a single mother with occasional help from her own mom, Kyla. Paris was born on October 10th, 1993, and he was an easy, calm baby. As a child, it was clear that Paris, like his mother, was extremely smart. When tested as a child, Paris was found to have an IQ of 141, which is a genius level IQ. Only about 0.48% of the entire world's population has an IQ this high. In school, Paris's teachers claim that he was the most intelligent student that they had ever taught. And at only 11 years old, Paris was already speaking with the vocabulary of a college graduate. And from an early age, Paris knew that he was smarter than other people. Paris looked down and talked down to people that he thought was not as smart as him. Paris was condescending, manipulative, and also charismatic. When Paris didn't get what he wanted, he didn't throw a hissy fit or a tantrum like the other children. He was more cunning and manipulative in his efforts to get his way. And then when Paris was 9 years old, Charity became pregnant again, this time with a daughter named Ella. This was a huge change to the family. It had always just been Paris and Charity. Charity doted on her only child, Paris, and Paris liked being an only child. So when Paris got the news that he would be getting a younger sibling, Paris did not react well. For the duration of Charity's pregnancy, Paris was angry and agitated. And this concerned Charity, but her worries were dismissed time and time again. Charity was told repeatedly that Paris's feelings were normal, that he was just jealous and that he would get over it, and that this was not something that she should be worried about. And after Ella was born, at first, it seemed like they were right. Ella was born on April 12th, 2002, and after her birth, everything changed. It seemed like Paris had fallen in love with his little sister, Ella. Paris was a devoted older brother, and he really took to that traditional protective big brother role, and it seemed like the two siblings were so close. Ella was said to be all personality and all attitude. She loved the color purple. She was pretty sassy, but she was also super caring and a huge sweetheart, and Ella loved her big brother, Paris. Ella looked up to her big brother, and she always wanted to be around Paris. I cannot stress enough how close it seemed that Ella and Paris were. People would often tell Charity how lucky she was to have a son who loved his little sister so much. Paris and Ella had different fathers, and Ella's dad was not involved either, so it was just the three of them: Charity, Paris, and Ella. They were a close little family, and for a minute there, it seemed like they had it all. But when Paris was only 11 years old, Charity relapsed and started using cocaine. Reportedly, this relapse only lasted 6 months, but during this time, Paris was very upset. He was very angry. He felt betrayed by his mother, and Paris began to act out. Paris would bang his head against the wall until he was bleeding from his head. There was one instance where Paris broke one of Ella's toys. When he was put on timeout, Paris grabbed a kitchen knife, ran out of the house, and then came at his mother with the knife. And this is probably the first red flag that there was something wrong with Paris, at least the first red flag that has been reported on. And after this incident, Charity checked Paris into a psychiatric facility. This was shortly before the events of today's tragic case. Paris was only at this facility for 1 week. Reports say that there was a file on Paris at this facility that claimed that Paris was having homicidal thoughts. Reports differ whether his mother, Charity, was made aware of this before she brought Paris back into the family home. Charity herself claims that she did not know this, that no one made her aware of this, but Charity's mother, Kyla, claims that she did know. Regardless, by 2007, the family had settled into their life in the small town of Abilene, Texas. Paris was 13 years old. Ella was 4 years old. Charity was sober. It was Sunday, February 4th, 2007, and it was Super Bowl Sunday, so Charity would be working late at the sports bar that she worked at, Buffalo Wild Wings. That evening, Paris and Ella had a babysitter, and it seemed like a normal night. The babysitter took Paris and Ella out for dinner. They got some Chinese food. They came home and they watched an animated movie together. It was the animated version of Alice in Wonderland. And after the movie, the babysitter tucked Ella into bed, and Paris was in his bedroom, supposed to be doing homework. But at 10 p.m., 13-year-old Paris Bennett convinced his babysitter to leave early. Like I've told you, he's a master manipulator. Paris then grabbed a knife from the kitchen. He entered his baby sister Ella's room, and he stabbed his 4-year-old sister Ella 17 times, killing her. Paris, only 13 years old, then calls one of his school friends and told them what he had just done. This call lasted 6 minutes. Paris then called 911 at 11:42 p.m. I'm going to play this 911 call for you. What you're about to hear is lies. It's acting from a master manipulator. Paris is going to try and act upset, panicked, shocked, terrified on this 911 call, where he admits to killing his baby sister. But Paris claims that he did this because he was hallucinating that his sister Ella was a demon. Take a listen.
Abilene 911.
Hello?
Abilene 911, go ahead.
I actually killed somebody.
You think you killed somebody?
No, I know I did. My sister?
Okay, where's your sister now?
She's in the bed.
Is she breathing?
No, I looked. I feel so messed up.
Okay, calm down, okay? I want you to stay on the phone with me, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's your sister's name?
Her name is Ella. Ella Bennett.
How old is Ella?
4.
She's 4 years old? How old are you?
13.
Is she bleeding anywhere?
Yeah, she's bleeding all over the bed. Because I stabbed her.
What did you stab her with?
A knife.
Okay, where'd you stab her?
Lots of places.
Okay, Paris, where's the knife?
It's on the bed with her. I didn't mean to.
I know, Paris. Okay, I want you to stay calm for me, okay? Okay, listen to me. Paris? Paris?
I woke up and I was hallucinating.
You were hallucinating?
Yes, and I thought my sister was a demon and I killed her.
I want you to start CPR, okay? What I want you to do is take her off the bed.
No, I know for a fact that she's dead because
do you want to go ahead and try? It might still help, okay?
No, I don't think it'll help because...
Come on, Paris, work with me.
I know I stabbed her lots of times.
Okay. Paris?
Yes?
Take her off the bed and put her on the floor.
Okay, hold on. Please don't hang up.
I'm not hanging up on you.
I thought she was a demon.
Okay.
Okay, she's on the floor, but I can't stay here because she's all bloody and
Paris,
stuff.
what I want you to do is I want you to put your hands on her chest, okay? And I want you to push 30 times. I want you to count.
Okay.
All the way to 30, and then blow 2 breaths in her mouth, okay?
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Paris, you put it down.
There's a few things I want to point out about that 911 call. You obviously hear the 911 operator begging Paris to perform CPR on Ella. You hear Paris counting out chest compressions like he's performing CPR. But Paris was acting. He never once tried to save Ella's life. During that time where you can hear Paris counting out like he's giving CPR, what he's really doing is Paris is in a different room. He's pacing back and forth and just counting out into the phone. When the first responders arrived, Ella was laying face down on the floor of her bedroom, and Paris was arrested. Another thing I find interesting that I want to point out, something I don't see brought up very often, is that Paris claims that he was hallucinating, that his sister was a flaming pumpkin-headed demon, which is why he attacked her in a frenzy, because he was scared and he was protecting himself. I wonder if Paris knew that his father was diagnosed with schizophrenia and that his father had visual hallucinations. Was this a premeditated defense on Paris's part? Was this a calculated move? Did he premeditate this because it would make sense, because schizophrenia can be passed down genetically? Police arrived at Charity's place of work shortly after midnight to tell her what had happened. They told her that Ella was hurt. Naturally, she assumed that that meant that there was some kind of accident. The idea that Ella was already dead, that Paris, her firstborn, was in custody and had already confessed, it never even crossed her mind. And at first, Charity believed her son, that this was an accident, that he really did hallucinate, that he would never hurt his sister on purpose. But when the autopsy came back for Ella, it told a completely different story, and it was far more horrifying than anyone could have ever expected. This wasn't a frenzied attack that you would see if someone truly did have a psychotic break, was hallucinating, and felt that they needed to protect themselves. No. What I'm about to tell you is going to be really hard for me to say out loud, and it's going to be really hard for you to hear. 4-year-old Ella Bennett was tortured before she died. This was not a frenzied attack. This was purposefully slow. Paris wanted to inflict as much pain as possible. Ella was beaten, strangled, and stabbed 17 times. There were also tragic signs of sexual assault, and Paris's semen was found on his sister and in his sister's bed. And when Charity heard the news of her daughter's autopsy, she was faced with the reality that her son Paris had lied. Charity confronted her son that she raised, that she loved, that she knew that he was a liar, and that he had purposefully killed his sister. Charity says that she confronted her son with this, and remember, he's only 13 years old. Charity says that the moment she confronted Paris, that she knew he killed Ella on purpose. She no longer recognized him as the boy she raised. It was like a mask that he had been wearing his entire life was gone. Paris looked up at his mother and said, "Well, it took you fucking long enough." There was another time where Paris says to his mother, "You always said that you would kill someone if they hurt your children. Well, what are you gonna do now?" Turns out the night that Paris killed his sister Ella, he was in his room where he was supposed to be doing homework, but instead he was watching graphic, violent, adult content. More specifically, Paris was watching snuff films, murder, and rape pornography. Paris, again, only 13 years old, tells his babysitter to leave. He enters his little sister's room where he sexually assaulted her and killed her. Charity says in an interview that Paris admitted that the more violent he got during the assault, the more excited that he got, and that the attack ended in death for Ella and climax for Paris. Charity's son was a killer, a cold-blooded killer. But turns out this wasn't the first time in Charity's life that someone in her family was murdered. It might not have been the first time someone in her family had killed someone either. We're going to quickly rewind to the beginning of the case where I briefly mentioned Charity's parents and her father's death. Turns out there's a lot more to that story. Charity's parents, Bobby and Kyla, owned that really successful trucking company. Well, turns out it was actually a front. Kyla and Bobby Bennett made their fortune actually transporting drugs across the entire country. From the outside, Bobby and Kyla seemed like any other married couple, but in reality, they were drug traffickers and they were making bank. Bobby already had an extensive criminal history with alleged family ties to the mafia, and it was Bobby's idea originally to get into the drug trafficking business. But Kyla took to the business like she was born into it, especially the lifestyle and the wealth that came with it. It might have been Bobby's idea to start trafficking drugs, but Kyla was the brains behind the operation. Kyla was clever, cunning, and manipulative. But all of this wealth also came with a lot of attention from young, beautiful women, and Bobby became unfaithful to his wife Kyla. Bobby also began to use the substances that they were supposed to be selling, breaking the first rule of drug dealing: don't get high on your own supply. Because of these reasons, Kyla and Bobby would briefly divorce before reconciling and remarrying in March of 1980. But the wedding bells would not mean happily ever after. Only 57 hours after their wedding, Bobby was found murdered in the foyer of their family home. Someone had come into their home and shot Bobby Bennett 4 times at close range, in the back, in the chest, in the heart, and in the head. And because of Bobby Bennett's wealth and his criminal background, there was no shortage of suspects. Plenty of people would want to see him dead, but there was one suspect that stuck out amongst the rest: his own wife, Kyla. Multiple men ended up coming forward claiming that Kyla had positioned them to murder her husband. One of them even had a map of the family home that had been written in Kyla's handwriting. This map marked the door that would be unlocked and where they would be able to find Bobby. Kyla believed that her husband Bobby had gotten sloppy and that he had lost his touch. His drug use was threatening her life and her wealth. Kyla would always keep up appearances, so she was going to eliminate the problem. And so, Kyla was arrested for the first-degree murder of her husband after being suspected of hiring a hitman. But Kyla insisted that she was being framed by the true killer, and that she was just a simple, small-town girl who loved Bobby Bennett since she was only a teenager. During her murder trial, Kyla presented herself as the meek, innocent, grieving widow. She would break down in tears every single time her husband Bobby was mentioned, and the jury came back that Kyla was not guilty of murder. Charity was very young when all of this happened, and during the time she actually had no idea that her mother was on trial for killing her father because she was with her grandparents at the time. But today, Charity believes that her mother Kyla is the reason that her father is dead. And after so many decades have passed, it seems like Kyla almost admits to it. Here's a clip of an interview of Kyla during a documentary on the case called The Family I Had, where Kyla talks about the relationship between her and her daughter Charity, the similarities amongst her family members, and her own guilt.
Up until Charity was 12 years old, she was the most wonderful, loving child that anyone could wish for. We were inseparable. And then from 12 on, it's like an alcoholic. It's up and down. She was a good manipulator. But we all are. Paris is. Ella was. I would be lying to you if I said that I wasn't. We all manipulate each other. We're all spoiled rotten. My other daughter, Caitlin, I don't think she's quite as good. She didn't have as good a teacher because I don't do it so much anymore. I don't have a company to manipulate. I don't have drivers to manipulate. I don't have a jury to manipulate. So.
And if Kyla really did kill her husband, that means that Charity is the daughter of a killer and a murder victim, as well as the mother of a killer and a murder victim. Paris did admit that he lied when he claimed to be hallucinating when he killed his sister. His case went to juvenile court where Paris pled guilty and was sentenced to the maximum sentence of someone his age, 40 years in prison with the possibility of parole in 20 years. Paris has changed his story dozens of times over the years. First, he denied the sexual assault of his sister, also denied watching that graphic, violent content before the murder. But at one point, he did admit that he sexually assaulted his sister and claimed that he killed her to cover it up so she wouldn't be able to tell anyone. Paris has also claimed that he just woke up that day wanting to hurt someone. He wanted to kill someone. He had this desire to watch someone die. He originally thought about killing his mom, then he thought about killing the babysitter, but ultimately chose to kill Ella. But the story that Paris has told most about why he killed his sister Ella, and the story that's most widely believed as fact, is that Paris killed Ella as a form of revenge against his mother because he was still angry about her relapse. Paris claims that he originally just thought about killing his mom but decided against it because he didn't think that it would be punishment enough, because it would only be 15 minutes max of pain. So he chose to kill his sister so that she would lose both of her children all at once and she would have a lifetime of pain. But Paris's story keeps changing, and he's told different stories and has had different motives throughout the years. And honestly, I don't believe that we've heard the 100% truth from him yet. And this is very painful for his mother, Charity, because at this point, she just wants to know why this happened. And it seems like this is just another form of torture and torment for his mother. And that's why he won't tell anyone why. And controversially, for a very long time, Charity continued to visit Paris in prison. And this is a choice that many people have judged Charity over. But personally, in my opinion, I don't think that if you have ever been through this situation before, that you have no right to judge. Charity says that she has unconditional love for her son, Paris, and that won't change. And 6 years after Ella was killed, Charity had another baby, another son that she named Phoenix. And Charity allowed Paris to have some kind of relationship with Phoenix. Paris wrote his brother letters for him to one day read when he got older, and Paris claims that he loves his baby brother. But many experts have warned Charity that before Paris gets out of prison, that she needs to go into hiding with Phoenix because they believe Paris will go after her. And Paris has said in the past that once he's released, that he will kill his mom. And Paris will be released from prison one day. He did not receive life in prison. It's not a matter of if Paris will get released, it's a matter of when he will. Today, Charity does not have a relationship with her mother, Kyla, and recently cut contact with Paris. On June 23rd, 2021, Charity posted this on her Facebook account. I completely walked away from my eldest child and have not looked back. It is one thing to be a child who makes horrible decisions. It's another thing altogether to be a 27-year-old man and keep making decisions that put your family at risk. The final straw was learning that he was involved with a woman who lives 2 hours away from us and was out on bond for planning a mass shooting. Boundaries have been crossed too many times. I bought a gun, learned to shoot. I am really good now, and I've said goodbye. I finally accepted it as okay to love him as my son, but really dislike the man he has become. Paris today continues to try and manipulate people. He advocates for his own early release. He claims that he is not a danger to anyone and claims that he does not have any mental illness. But in reality, Paris is a psychopath. He's a narcissist, a sadist, and a sociopath. He's a master manipulator with a genius-level IQ. Many claim that Paris was born evil, with others thinking that it's something he inherited. Paris Bennett will be eligible for parole in February of 2027, which is less than 2 years away from the date of upload. If Paris is granted early release, he will be only 33 years old. If Paris is never granted parole, he will be released in February of 2047 at the age of 53 years old. And if you've watched to the end of this episode, thank you so much for listening to Ella Bennett and Bobby Bennett's story. If you haven't already, please make sure you are following the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and that you're subscribed on YouTube. Please make sure to rate and review the show because it really, really helps it out to push these cases and these videos out to more people. Please make sure to like and comment all your opinions and theories on this case, and I will see you guys all next week when we are hot on the case once again.